Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. And can Francis or Pancake Huncho earn some starting spots in next year's offensive line? Now I look at this as going one of three ways. I do think each one of these particular ways there will be some overlapping, but I see this going one of three ways, right? So let me get started. So we got the first way, which is, neither guy starts, right? Neither guy starts. Both guys are able to acquiesce into the too deep, right? So last spring, at the conclusion of last spring, it was noted that the coaching staff said they felt confident in 8 guys, right? So obviously Zion Nelson as well as John Campbell were a part of that 8, right? Obviously Jalen Rivers, Ja'Kai Clark, Scaife, that was there. Now, Zion didn't play, so that takes that number down from 8 to 7. John Campbell gets hurt. That takes that down from 7 to 6, right? So you insert Francis and Pancake, so that puts us back up to 8, and then we add back in Zion, that puts us up to 9, and then if one of the other freshman linemen can play, or if Anez Cooper can step back, step up, we're at 10, right? Because I don't think Anez Cooper was figured into that 8-man rotation, right? He just was a late addition in terms of playing, and he actually looked pretty well in a lot of the ways that he was playing. So what ends up happening is, I stated this on another video, I do think that we will have a 10-deep roster along the offensive line next year. So the reason why I say that both guys couldn't start is because of this. If we are to believe that, and I got 2 reasons for this. Let me start with the one that's the most outlandish. The most outlandish one is applying the logic that was stated throughout the entirety of the season when we saw guys that didn't play to the level that Coach Cristobal wanted them to play. And that was, well, you can't expect Coach Cristobal and staff to uncoach or coach out the bad habits that these guys developed under Manny Diaz in 6 to 9 months, right? That's one. And the second reason is, I know it's been widely reported by many pundits stating that cornerback, safety are 2 of the hardest positions to play in football, regardless of level. But I think you do have to take some consideration in for offensive line, especially if we're talking about freshman guys coming in and expecting to play heavy minutes against a lot of veteran defensive linemen. Well, they may have the technique, but a lot of these guys are not necessarily playing against top-tier competition on a weekly basis. And some guys are just using that they're just so much bigger than other guys, and they are just manhandling people, right? So if we're to believe that Coach Mario and Coach Mirabel are the best duo of offensive lineman developers in the entire country, we have to put that to work, right? We can't use a case study of a 5-star offensive tackle from the University of Oregon as a case study. We can't necessarily even use the offensive linemen that were recruited at the University of Alabama as case studies. Right now is what you have some guys at the University of Miami right now that have gone through a season, have seen what those particular guys wanted, have seen what it is that our particular coaches are asking them to do from a lifting standpoint, from a technique standpoint. So they can only compound, they can only get better as we get into the off season. So I expect in the spring that some of the guys that may have looked bad during the season, I do think those guys can particularly take a certain leap because maybe they were not figured into that particular 8-man rotation. And then also at the same time, similar to quarterback, offensive line prospects are hit or miss, right? They're just hit or miss. You may have a guy that doesn't do anything as a freshman, a guy that doesn't do anything as a sophomore. He may start to contribute as a junior, right? He may even take a redshirt year. So he could be a redshirt junior, and that's finally when it finally clicks, That's when it finally clicks for that young man. And we're talking about a guy that could be a all-conference type of player. I'm not going to put say, oh man, he's going to become an All-American type of player. But it takes time to groom these particular positions. So I do believe that we could be in a situation where neither guy starts, but they are in the too deep. Now, which gets me to my second point. Now, let's say my second point has overlap with the first point, whereas we could see one of these guys actually start at tackle, right tackle, because we're under the assertion that Zion is coming back. And my third one, let me go ahead and just spill the beans on my third one, is that both guys start, right? But let me get back to my second one. In hopes that Zion can come back and look like a resemblance of himself, right? So one of those guys, whichever one works the hardest, whichever one is the most consistent, that particular guy plays right tackle, right? I think we're in good hands with both guys, right? I know some people have, did a little nitpicking, right? They said that Francis has played against some better competition, whereas Pancake has actually just been the bigger guy against some high schoolers, right? So that question will be answered, in very short order. It will be answered. Which particular statement is true, or if both statements are or it doesn't mean anything. Both guys may be just as good, and we could be in a situation where one of them, you can't keep both of them off the field, right? But let's stay on scenario 2. So we get that. And that's good. That means the evaluation of what Coach Mario, Zoe, and the staff saw, that evaluation, okay, we checked that off. One of them guys is already inserted in the starting lineup, right? So, third scenario, which in my opinion is the absolute worst scenario. Zion can't come back. And both of those guys are forced into action and have to play. Right? Both guys have to play. Now, why is that the absolute worst scenario? Well, of course, it's the absolute worst scenario because you got 2 freshman tackles. And we watched our situation back in 2018, beginning of the season against University of Florida. No, 2019. 2019, University of Florida gave up 11 sacks. Zion Nelson was on the he was a turnstile. All right? Gave up 11 sacks. Now, am I saying that Francis or Pancake Huncho could have a debut like that? No, I'm not saying they could, but it's possible. You never know. It's possible. And also, we got a veteran quarterback that's returning, that is, whatever was going on with his particular shoulder, hopefully he gets that particular issue cleaned up, but we don't need the season to end before the season even starts by one of those guys whiffing on the block. So that's the absolute worst scenario. But it has the highest reward, because the earlier you can get those guys game experience, the better off we'll be in the long run, because they won't look the same in game 1 as they will at the end of the season. And hopefully towards the end of the season, we're playing for bowl contention. Now, again, I'm still on my prediction of, 500. Anything better than that, icing on the cake. But I'm going right at 500. That's just what I'm doing right now. 500, 6-6. So those are the 3 particular scenarios. Now, ideally, seeing that both guys are highly rated, I'm sure the coaching staff would probably want scenario 2 to play out. Well, no. I thought they would want scenario 1 to play out. But when we're talking about rebuilding something, it could be a situation where they may want scenario 3 to play out. I mean, I don't know. But who knows? But what do you guys think? Which scenario do you guys want? My answer is, I honestly would want scenario 1. Because with scenario 1, that to me means that you guys have earned that development title. That means you guys have earned it, right? And obviously we're getting some, you know, some rumors about some potential portal guys that could come in. So that'll help solidify the offensive line. So that could, again, lean towards, you know, us getting in a situation where scenario 1 could be a reality. And, you know, but what do you guys think? I'm going with scenario 1. Would not be upset with scenario 2, but if scenario 3 happens, 6-6, baby. If scenario 3 happens, 6-6, right? But with that being said, like I said, man, what do you guys think in the comments? As always, man, like, share, subscribe, and it's always about the you.